What's up, everybody? Welcome to the official episode 1 of the brand new Mark Casto Program. Now, this is not my first time doing a podcast. Sometimes I've done podcasts with other people. Sometimes I've done a podcast called Wise Builders, and then I had the Shepherd's Tent, which did sermons. And I realized that I have so compartmentalized my life in so many ways that it really doesn't represent the most authentic version of who Mark Casto is. And there's so much more to me than a preacher, an author. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I'm passionate about business, entrepreneurship. I love getting into the nitty-gritty with people and helping them overcome challenges and problems and mindsets in their business. Like, I've been doing that for years. Nobody knew that, but behind the scenes, I've been leading entrepreneurs and business owners for years as a pastor. It's a big, big part of my life. And so I'm excited to bring you into the official first episode of the Mark Casto Program and to bring my full authentic self and my thoughts into this. And I hope that you'll go ahead and click that subscribe button in the podcast here and go ahead and give me a 5-star review in faith, believing that this show is going to be absolutely amazing. And so I might have guests on from time to time, but it's really going to be me talking to you about what I'm seeing in the world, giving you my worldview from a good news, finished work perspective, and talking about the things that I love. So I want to welcome you. This is really a show for the reformers, the builders, the creators, and the kingdom-minded people who are just ready to break free from the fear-based religion, the toxic hustle culture, and, of course, to break away from small thinking. And if you're listening to this right now, you're part of a generation that isn't content to sit in a chair or a pew or punch a clock for the rest of your life. You're actually called to build, and deep down, you know it. And so today, I'm going to begin really with talking to you about something that's been burning in me for a long time. And this is episode 1 of what I believe is going to be a movement. And that's why I'm calling this one today the Entrepreneurial Awakening, and why the church must leave the 9-to-5 mindset. So I want to just tell you right out the gate, I'm going to say it as plainly as I can. You're not crazy. You're being called into something new. So if you've been feeling restless and frustrated or unsettled in your job and even in your church experience, you're not crazy. You're not rebellious. You're not ungrateful or being ungrateful. You're being awakened. And there is a massive shift happening in the hearts of people all over. And I'm talking about thousands upon thousands of believers, people who love God, people who've been faithful, people who have served for years, suddenly realizing, I was made for more than this. More than showing up to a job that drains you, more than surviving on a salary that barely pays the bills, living paycheck to paycheck, more than working for someone else's dream while yours dies quietly on the inside of you. And let me say this clearly, that tension that you feel, it's not rebellion. It's a revelation. It's God calling his people out of systems that were never meant to sustain us. And the reality is, guys, the system is broken and it does not align with the kingdom. And so I just want to start by talking about the 9-to-5 system. Where did it come from? See, this model was never designed with your purpose in mind. It was created by industrialists in the early 20th century, guys like Frederick Winslow Taylor and Henry Ford, who needed factory workers to be productive and predictable. See, the 40-hour work week wasn't built for fulfillment. It wasn't built for freedom. It was built for efficiency and control. And we in the modern church, we just slapped a spiritual label on it. We said, just be faithful. God will promote you. Serve your way to significance. All of those bogus, Christianese that we speak. But we were never taught let me say it this way. We never taught people in the church how to own something. We never taught them to build. We never taught them to multiply what was in their hands. I thought this was fascinating. I actually read this the other day. In Gallup, they just released a study that said 60% of American workers are disengaged from their jobs. Now, just let that sink in for a minute. People are sitting in cubicles, maybe you are right now while you're listening to this, staring at screens, trading their energy and their time for a paycheck while their interior world is drying up. Guys, that's not abundant life, and that's something that Jesus promised his people. Guys, that's not abundant life. And so I want to get real for a second here and just remind you that we've actually in the church been taught obedience, but we've not been taught ownership. And so the modern church, the Church of the West, has done a phenomenal job teaching people how to behave. We've preached a moral gospel, and quite honestly, I don't see major fruit in it as a nation. But that's what we focus on, is behavior modification in the church. But sadly, in our pursuit of teaching everybody how to behave, we've forgotten and done a terrible job teaching people how to build. We said things like, tithe your way to a blessing, submit and serve, stay under authority, wait for your turn. But let me ask you, what if your turn doesn't come from a man who can't see beyond the pulpit? What if it already came from God? Guys, we've turned the church into a classroom where people learn to sit still and take notes while inside they're dying to do something meaningful. And here's the tragedy. The people with the greatest gifts to build, to lead, and create have often felt out of place in the church because they weren't called to the ministry. They were called to the marketplace. They were called to the stage. They were called to build businesses, products, content, solutions, and the church didn't know what to do with them. And so that's why I want you to know, like, this entrepreneurial call, it's actually biblical. You know, entrepreneurship is not a secular idea. It's sacred. And if you just look through the scriptures, you can see Noah wasn't somebody standing behind a pulpit telling the people of his generation what to do. He was a builder. He built a boat. Everybody thinks that, you know, Peter talks about in the epistle that Peter wrote, he said, you know, he talks about Noah being a preacher of righteousness. And we think that being a preacher of righteousness meant that Noah's like, you know, protesting, doing tent revivals and running the streets, telling everybody, you know, his latest, greatest revelation in a sermon. But being a preacher of righteousness was building a boat. And his obedience to build a boat the way God instructed him to, it saved the world. Abraham, he wasn't a preacher, somebody just doing something inside the four walls of a building. Abraham owned land and livestock and had employees. Don't forget Joseph. I'm still just in the book of Genesis here. Don't forget Joseph, who ran an entire economic strategy for the entire nation of Egypt. He wasn't a preacher. He wasn't doing something in a four-wall building. Then if you jump to Exodus 31, you've got another guy named Bezalel who was filled with the Spirit to build and design. He was literally anointed by God to create. And then if you go over in the New Testament, you find out about a woman named Lydia who was a businesswoman whose financial success helped fund Paul's ministry. And then don't forget Jesus, a tecton, not just a carpenter. When it talks about the word carpenter there, it's a word that means builder, craftsman, or architect. So this is what I'm saying. The entrepreneurial spirit didn't start with Silicon Valley. It started in Genesis 1 when God said, be fruitful and multiply. Guys, that's not just about kids. That's about ownership. It's about creation, about building something from nothing. And guys, that awakening is happening right now. Something is shifting in the culture, and the data, it proves it. If you look at Pew Research, they say that more than half of millennials and Gen Z want to start their own business. LinkedIn, which is becoming a really powerful social media for professionals and people in the corporate space, they report that freelancing and digital entrepreneurship is now the fastest growing segment of the economy. And post-COVID, millions of people walked away from jobs and many never came back. Guys, people aren't just quitting careers, they're rejecting systems that have held them back from the creativity and their ability to create wealth and find purpose in the earth. I'll give you another study. If you read Barna, they just did a study and found that more than 70% of younger Christians believe that faith should impact their work, yet very few feel that the church has equipped them to do that. Why? Because we've made the pulpit the prize instead of empowering people to become the priest in the marketplace. Guys, this is the entrepreneurial awakening. And it's not just economic, it's prophetic. It's happening. It's happening all around. So let me get personal for a second. If you've been feeling if you've been feeling restless in your job, if you've felt unfulfilled in traditional mainstream church life, if you're feeling that having that constantly thinking about ideas that could help people, wanting more freedom, income, and purpose, feeling a holy dissatisfaction with the status quo, guys, that's the call of creating. That's the call of a builder. And I want to say this to you loud and clear. You're not being rebellious, but you are being recommissioned. And you're not stepping out of God's will. You're stepping into the very reason you were born. And the kingdom needs builders. God's raising up a generation of people who are not just saved, but sent. Not just churched, but called. Not just obedient, but owning their assignment. And the next revival that I believe that we're going to see, or we're already seeing revival, we're seeing renewal happening in the earth. I think this big renewal, it's not going to be confined to church buildings. It's going to flow through digital courses. It's going to come through coaching businesses. It's going to come through online communities. It's going to come through kingdom-minded entrepreneurs who know how to move money and multiply impact and manifest Jesus in the marketplace. And let me tell you something. This podcast exists to help you do exactly that. We are done waiting on permission from religious leaders and American cultural ideas that we've got to continue to punch a clock and trade hours for dollars. We're done with that. We're done trying to fit our calling into a system that was never designed for us. This is the age for the builder. This is the age of the builder. And you were born for this. And I'm just going to tell you right now, if this episode stirred something in you, amazing. That means your spirit is alive and it's being awakened. And I want to make sure you don't fall back asleep. So I want you to do something. Not only do you need to hear this, but you need to share this with someone who needs to hear it. And guys, I'm going to be honest with you. If you're ready to start building, if you want strategy, clarity, community, I want to encourage you to click the link in the description of this podcast. There are so many of you that are just tired of life as usual, and you're ready to do something meaningful as a king priest in the earth. You're wanting to do something with your life that is far beyond you clocking into a job that you don't love, having to spend 40 hours a week in a building that you don't want to even be at. And it's time for you to unlock the creativity and the purpose that's inside of you. So I've got a link below in the description of the show notes of this podcast. Click that link, guys. Book a call with me. Let's talk about where you're at. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you're facing, and let me show you a new path to financial and time freedom. And let's just keep this conversation going. Guys, this is just the beginning. This is episode 1. So welcome to the Mark Casto Program, and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Awakening. I look forward to catching up with you in the next episode. And if this episode's been a blessing to you, make sure to give us that 5-star review. Make sure to put something in that review and tell people that you enjoyed the podcast. That's probably one of the greatest things that you could do. Book a call with me. I'd love to talk with you. And guys, if you want to get in touch with me, just email me, Mark, M-A-R-K, at markcasto.co, markcasto.co. Send me an email. Tell me, Mark, hey, I listened to the podcast. If you've got questions, send them to me in an email. And if you want to connect with me, make sure to follow me on Instagram. I've got a big audience over there, but I check all of my messages when people message me. I love to hear from you guys. I love to engage with you in the comments, love to engage with you in the DMs. So connect with me, guys. And thanks for being a part of episode 1 of this podcast. I look forward to making hundreds upon hundreds of more. Hope this was helpful to you.